Alright, I'm Daniel the Manual 24, and today we are doing why the gong is the most boring musical instrument. This is a sequel to a video I made a while ago called Why the Triangle is the Most Boring Musical Instrument, and that did pretty well in terms of how I felt about the video, so I decided why not do a second one. So here I am making a second one basically. So we've got the most boring musical instrument. It's the gong. I know you all were thinking it beforehand. Here it is in all its glory. I would like to know, shirtless man, typically not included with most gongs. He's just there, he's having a good time. Let's call him Steve. Goodbye, Steve. So, what is a gong? Well, it's a big circle. You hit it with a big stick and it makes a big noise. And it looks like this. You see, you've got your little stick there. That's the circle with the sticky bit out, hence stick. And then you've got your gong. Some gongs do tend to have another circle in middle of them, but I didn't draw that, obviously, because couldn't be bothered. And then there's a little string attached, similar to the triangle, but the shape is different. The sound is worse, and it's more boring, funnily enough. So, what makes a gong so bloody boring then? Well, glad you asked. It's got a boring shape, hasn't it? Circle. Boring. Rubbish. No points. Terrible. No point to it, you see? It's boring sound. Gong. Bong. It's not good. It's like if Big Ben were... Imagine it's just like Big Ben. Big Ben's boring and all, but it's not a gong, so it's not quite as bad. It's a bell, you see. I've gone off script a bit. Takes away from the good instruments like the triangle. You know, you hear a gong, it's very loud, it's very in your face. You can't hear the good instruments in background because all you've got is a gong. Rubbish. It's got a boring name as well. A couple other things as well. Yeah, so fell asleep on my keyboard during the writing of this part because I was so bored, and I left it in just because I felt like emphasising the boredom this musical instrument has the capacity to cause. So there's the reason for that garbled nonsense. Absolutely nothing coherent in that mess of text. Now, a lot of you may be wondering, why is a circle boring? You learnt about it in primary school, didn't you, when you was doing your 3D shapes and your 2D shapes? Not in that order, usually you do 2D first, but I felt like mentioning 3D ones first because I prefer them a little bit. But you did the circle, it's very easy. You just draw one line, go around. But circles, very boring, can make anything boring. You may think, how? I quite like the circle. Well, you're an idiot if that's the case. But how's a circle boring? I'll tell you. Let's take something that everyone loves. A particular example I have in something that everyone loves is, of course, Margaret Thatcher's grave. We all love Margaret Thatcher's grave. Happiest place in the UK. Second only to Croydon. Now, you may think, how could you possibly make Margaret Thatcher's grave boring? I love Margaret Thatcher's grave. It's so exciting. It's so happy. It fills me with joy every time I see it. Well, observe. Here's Margaret Thatcher's grave. It's very interesting. And watch what a circle does to it. Quite boring, this. I don't know if you could tell. There you go. Wasn't that boring? I found it quite boring. No, you didn't find it boring, did you not? Then we'll do it again, shall we? Off we go. Bore yourselves to death. This is for the couple of you in there who was answering along at home and you thought you'd be sneaky and say it wasn't boring. Well, then I'm sure you wouldn't mind another one, would you? Have a look at it go. Circular. Proper boring, that. Cheers. There you go. Now, moving on. The sound a gong makes could make someone fall asleep. It's that boring. So, gongs have one sound. Sounds like this. There you go. It only varies in volume. You can get louder, and you can get less loud. There you go. There's your volume. It's also used to announce dinner in stereotypical Western films. This one is Clue. It's alright, I think. It's got like 3 different endings, which is a bit odd. This only appears in the start though, so it's not really... I mean, this appears every time. There's always a gong in that film. I mean, you don't have to watch it 3 times. I digress. This isn't a video about Clue. Go watch the film if you're interested at all. Just, you know, try not to fall asleep during this part. But anyway, yeah, announcing dinner in stereotypical Western films. Silly, innit? It's like playing an electric guitar riff when you walk into a McDonald's, innit? Why you gotta do that? Why have you gotta bang a gong to say, oh, it's dinner time? Silly. It's like going into McDonald's. You alright? Can I get Big Mac? Silly. Terrible, really. Gongs are also proper loud. I don't know if you know this, right? Have a listen to this famous piece, which contains gongs. You'll notice the gong quite loud. So there you go. There was that. You notice how the sound dominates without adding anything of value. Basically, right, the sound is there. You can hear that there is a sound, but the piece is not better off because of it. If you will, it is the Piers Morgan of musical instruments. There is just noise, which does not add anything of value to what you are hearing, but does dominate what you are hearing. And then there you go, there's a Piers Morgan on a gong. Thought that would demonstrate the fact quite well. Couldn't quite fit his little neck fold on the you see how this little bit of neck flab is sort of sticking off the end there. It can happen, you know. Maybe who ate all the pies? It might have been Piers Morgan. It's in his name. Look, Piers Morgan. Terrible. Gongs are attention whores. This is that's a figure of speech. You know, they're not actually. I digress. Gongs just have to be biggest instrument in the room. Say you're looking at an orchestra, right? You look out at an orchestra. It's got all the violins. It's got your clarinets and your flutes and all them nonsense, right? And then suddenly sitting somewhere in back, but still larger than everything else, you've got a gong. It's a huge thing. Everyone's like, "Ooh, look at me! I'm a gong. I'm really cool." No, you're not. Anyway, so all these images are to scale, right? So you've got a double bass, typically one of the larger instruments in an orchestra. It's about that size, pretty alright, you know, pretty solid instrument there. Then you've got a grand piano, Dreams Time grand piano to be precise. I've not paid their company for that stock photo, so let's hope they don't sue me. And this fine gentleman there who's sat at the elm, playing his grand piano, look at him go. That's very nice, that's all big. And then suddenly this fucker comes along with his big gong and his abnormally large arm. Puts him to shame, doesn't he? It's like, oh, look at me, I'm so huge. Sure you are, mate. Sure you are. Compensating for something, are we? Food for thought. I digress. While we're at it, Gong is a shite name and all, right? Gong. G-O-N-G. 4 letters, not very good, right? Couple problems I have with it. Number 1, starts and ends with the same letter. Pretty unoriginal in my opinion. Could have picked any other letter. Gond. Gondi. Gono. Gonu. Goni. Gont. Goner. Plenty of good names there. Gong. Same letter. Couldn't be bothered picking a different one, could you? Tosser. It's 1 syllable. Lacking. Bare minimum, that is. It's the smallest amount of syllables. You can't have a 0 syllable word. It's got to be 1. So they just put enough to make it count as a word. And then that was it. Couldn't be bothered adding another one. Could have been anything, really. Gonga. Gongli. Gongy boo, if they're going to be all fancy about it. But no, they just decided to stick with 1. Laziness. The laziness of whoever made that word. And the G at the end makes for an unsavoury pronunciation of the word. Gong. Ng. Ong. The G at the end. The G. It's not good. Makes a sort of unsavoury sound when you say it. Ong. Gong. Bad. Don't like that at all. Furthermore, the sound ong. It's not very good words associated with that. Similar rhyming words to gong are often bad, not very nice words. You can have bong, pong, or even schlong. None of these are particularly nice words. Boring. To recap, it's boring. That's all you need to really say. Gongs are the most boring instruments. They just are. That's it. They're so boring, there's literally nothing else important or interesting to put here. It's just the word boring, really. That's all I needed to put on this slide. Perchance. Next slide. Now, while we're on the subject of boring, what's the most boring genre of music? I know that's a tickling question you've been having during this little thing. You've been thinking, if gongs are the most boring musical instrument, surely the most boring genre of music is gong music. Well, no, the musical instrument's so boring it can't even create music of its own accord. So we've got to do something else for that. So, I put it to you that the most boring genre of music is, in fact, drill music. Now, why? Well, it just makes sense, really. You know, if someone asks, what's boring to you? What do you find boring? If you wanted to be bored, if you wanted something to bore you, what would you pick? I'd say I'd take drill. Drill usually gets me quite bored, you know. Put a drill on. You find that, you know, very boring. It bores away, it really does, you know. Drill is boring. Drill music bores, you know. Finn, there you are. There's another little PowerPoint on our good friends' musical instruments. Everyone loves musical instruments, except the gong. Everyone hates the gong because it's a terribly boring instrument. So if you enjoyed my little information video, I think that's a good term. Information video. People say that. So if you enjoyed my little information video, please consider supporting me by giving me all your money. No, by liking video, leaving a comment. What other PowerPoints do you want to see? I like making PowerPoints. They're dead easy. Get them done in a few hours. Record yourself going through a PowerPoint. It's free. It's easy. I love doing it. Please support these videos, right? So that I can go and buy myself something nice. Like I don't know, Big Mac, something like that. Anyway, it's alright, lads. Have a good one.